So here's a pretty startling question for you. Can China literally turn off Romania's lights? I mean, can a foreign power really have that much control over an entire country's power grid? Well, according to one former top diplomat, the answer is a lot more worrying than you might think. We're about to dive into an interview with the former U.S. ambassador, Adrian Zuckerman, to break down his claims about China's influence deep inside Romania's most critical systems.
And that's the core warning right there. He doesn't just say there's a little influence, he uses the word omnipresent. It's everywhere. According to him, this isn't just about business competition. No, he's talking about a direct threat of sabotage from the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Which, begs the obvious question, where exactly are these threats?
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack. The interview points to weak spots that aren't just hidden away in cyberspace or in some complicated international deal. No, he says they're right there in front of us, inside government buildings, on NATO military bases, and maybe even inside your own home. Okay, let's start with the first thing Zuckerman really flags, the physical hardware. We're talking about the tangible tech that you can see and touch, the stuff we use every single day, probably without even thinking about it.
Zuckerman basically argues that there's this fundamental trade-off happening. The big appeal of Chinese tech? It's cheap. It saves everybody money, from government agencies to regular people. But he warns that this comes with a huge hidden price tag, giving away sensitive information and, even worse, control to the CCP. He claims for them, gathering intelligence is way more important than just making a profit.
And this is where it gets really specific. According to the former ambassador, we're not just talking about any old buildings. He specifically claims that Chinese-made surveillance cameras are installed at the Cotroceni Palace. That's the presidential headquarters, and even on NATO military bases inside Romania. He says the minute those things are connected to Wi-Fi, they could be streaming a live feed of who's coming and going straight back to China. But it's not just about cameras. Zuckerman also points a finger at something you might not think about, a key part of the whole green energy movement, the solar inverter. Just think of this thing as the brain of a solar panel system. It's the piece of tech that takes the sun's energy, turns it into electricity you can actually use, and then connects your whole house to the national grid, usually over Wi-Fi. And here's the number from the interview that should really make you sit up. Zuckerman claims that a staggering 90% of these crucial solar inverters in Romania are made in China. Why? Because they're just so much cheaper than the European or American ones. They've completely flooded the market. And the implication he's making is pretty clear. If a foreign power controls the brain of thousands of little power sources all over the country, they could, in theory, create absolute chaos for the entire electrical grid.
All right, so we've talked about hardware in our walls. Let's switch gears to the software that's on our phones. Because the interview points to another huge front in this alleged infiltration, the social media giant TikTok.
Now, to be clear, the point Zuckerman makes here is that the problem isn't the app itself. The tech for a short-form video app. It's not inherently evil. The danger, in his view, comes from who owns it. He argues that under Chinese law, the company has no choice but to share all of its data with the CCP, basically turning a fun little app into a seriously powerful tool for spying and for destabilizing countries.
And this is where the interview claims things get, well, kind of sinister. It alleges there's a deliberate, two-track system. In China, their version of the app supposedly pushes educational, wholesome content to young people. But in the West, it claims the algorithm pushes viral challenges and stuff that, as the reporter put it, turns kids to dust. Basically content that rots their brains and shapes how they see the world.
So as described in the source material, it really boils down to this two-pronged attack. First up, espionage. The app can allegedly scrape pretty much all the data off your phone once you install it. And second, propaganda. It can be used as an incredibly effective tool to shape what people think, push certain political candidates, and, ultimately, mess with democratic elections. Okay, so you're probably thinking, if these threats are as real as the former ambassador claims they are, what are the authorities actually doing about it? Well, this next part looks at Zuckerman's pretty sharp criticism of the official response, or really, the lack of one. So, this timeline, based on what's in the interview, paints a picture of, well, a government that seems stuck. According to Zuckerman, about a year and a half ago, Romania's own security agencies recommended banning TikTok. Later, when a key official named Pavel Popescu publicly agreed with them, he got slammed for it. And in the end, the government just refused to do anything. And you can really feel his frustration in this quote. This was his reaction when he heard the official excuse for letting Lenovo, a Chinese company, get involved in Romania's 5G networks.
A top security official apparently said it was fine because Lenovo is a Hong Kong company, as if that's somehow totally separate from Beijing. Zuckerman just couldn't believe it, calling it an unbelievable enormity.
And the criticism doesn't stop there. Zuckerman also points to other worrying signs, like the fact that it's been 4 years of nothing happening on a deal for American companies to fix up the Cernavodă nuclear plant after a Chinese deal got canceled. He even points out the weird symbolism of having a major Beijing boulevard in Bucharest. To him, all these little things add up to a government that is, in his own words, potentially infiltrated.
So, let's pull all these different threads together and connect the dots. What's the big picture that this interview is trying to paint about what's really at stake for Romania?
What we've seen is a description of a threat that's coming from all sides. It's technological, right? With vulnerabilities supposedly baked into everything from security cameras to apps on our phones. It's infrastructural, with its potential for control over the very electricity we depend on. And it's political, with these claims of shocking inaction and decisions that leave the country wide open.
And that brings us right back to where we started. But now the question feels even heavier. In a world where our phones, our homes, and our national power grids are all tangled together through technology, the interview with Adrian Zuckerman really forces us to ask, when everything is connected, who is really holding the power switch?